We're starting off today with a story that, well, it started out with fear, and then, I don't know about you, but I'm still confused.
Yeah, a real head scratcher.
You probably remember the case of Hannah.
Oh, yeah.
The 30-year-old woman from Hawaii went missing. Thankfully, she's been found safe. But the details, oh boy, the details of her disappearance and reappearance, they're more tangled.
More tangled
than a bowl of Hawaiian poi.
That's a good one. That's a great analogy. It's not just like a simple, missing person case. This one's got layers.
Before we get too deep into this whole thing, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. You are not going to want to miss how this story unfolds. So Hannah was supposed to be going to New York, but instead, she ended up in Mexico. And it wasn't a solo trip either. Initially, she was traveling with her ex-boyfriend and another man, Alan, who we later learned she had secretly married.
Oh, wow. Okay, so the plot thickens. This Alan, he's an Argentinian national. And it seems like their trip, it was tied to a possible immigration scheme.
Wait, hold on. Immigration scheme?
Yeah.
That sounds serious.
Yeah, so Hannah's mother, she found some pretty suspicious immigration documents at Hannah's home in Hawaii. And these documents suggest that Hannah and her ex-boyfriend, they were involved in marriages of convenience.
Oh, wow.
Possibly to help Alan and another woman get visas.
So imagine this. You're Hannah. You're secretly married, potentially caught up in this whole visa scheme, and things are not going as planned. You're feeling trapped, maybe even a little desperate. What would you do?
Well, it seems like Hannah's next move was to head to Los Angeles. She was spotted at the Groove Mall picking up luggage. She even bought a Greyhound ticket. But here's where the story takes a strange turn. She starts sending these cryptic messages to her family.
Cryptic how? Give us the details.
Okay, so she's talking about stolen money, a stolen identity. She's even saying things like, I can't fly. Her family is understandably worried. I mean, they're picturing her being abducted or caught up in something really dangerous. Her father especially. He's distraught. He flies to LA to join the search. And tragically, he ends his own life. During that time...
That's absolutely heartbreaking. And the pressure on everyone involved must have been just...
Yeah.
Immense.
Absolutely. And this is where the family's initial narrative and what actually happened really start to diverge. Remember, they were worried about abduction. They thought maybe she was drugged, taken. But while she was in LA, Hannah met a stranger at a train station. And he claims he simply offered her food and a place to rest. Seeing she was distressed.
Now put yourself in that position. Would you trust a stranger in that kind of situation? Especially if you're feeling as lost and confused as Hannah.
Right.
It's a tough call, right? If you're finding this story as captivating as we are, hit that like button. We'll keep digging deeper.
So that encounter with the stranger, it becomes like a pivotal point in the story. On the one hand, you have the family, absolutely terrified, imagining the worst. And on the other hand, you have this man who says he was just trying to help.
So how do we reconcile these two very different versions of events?
I think it's a classic case of perception versus reality. The family, understandably, they were looking at everything through this lens of fear, the cryptic texts from Hannah, the potential dangers of that immigration scheme. It all added up to a very frightening scenario in their minds.
Okay, but how do we know that this stranger was telling the truth? I mean, it's not every day you just meet someone at a train station and end up spending hours with them.
That's true. That's a fair point. I mean, we have to acknowledge that there's a degree of uncertainty here. We only have their individual accounts. We don't have all of the details of their interaction. But what we do know is that after this encounter, Hannah, she continued her journey alone.
Wait, so she just left L.A. after all that?
She did. And where did she go? Remember that Greyhound ticket she bought? It was for a trip to the Mexican border.
Hold on. If Hannah was in such a bad mental state with all this talk about stolen money and identity, how was she able to even plan and execute a trip to another country? That doesn't seem to add up.
Well, what if we look at it through a different lens? What if Hannah wasn't running from something, but towards something? She just didn't know what that something was. Her mind was creating an escape route.
I see where you're going with this. You're talking about dissociative fugue, right?
Exactly. It's a rare condition. But under immense stress, someone might just take off, travel, even forget who they are, for a while.
So we saying that Hannah was experiencing this, essentially running away.
Yeah.
Without really fully understanding why.
It's certainly a possibility. I mean, think about those text messages again. I got hacked, stripped of my identity, I can't fly. Those aren't exactly the words of someone thinking clearly. They suggest a level of Disorientation, paranoia, that could align with dissociative fugue.
Okay, that's starting to make a little more sense.
Good
But
job.
wouldn't someone experiencing fugue
Yeah.
be completely out of it? I mean,
Yeah.
the man at the station, he said she seemed coherent.
Well, dissociative fugue, it doesn't always look the same in everyone. Imagine your brain hitting a reset button under extreme stress. You're not quite yourself. You might even forget who you are for a while, but you can still function on a basic level.
So she might have been aware of her actions, like buying that ticket and crossing the border, but not fully understanding the why or the how.
Precisely. And that brings us back to the family's initial narrative. It's understandable why they feared the worst. I mean, they were operating on limited information, fueled by worry and grief.
Especially with the tragic loss of Hannah's father. He must have been going through unimaginable pain during that search.
It's a heartbreaking reminder of the ripple effect these situations can have, the stress, the uncertainty, the media scrutiny. It all takes a toll.
And even though Hannah was found safe, the family is still left picking up the pieces. They're grieving, confused, and they're probably wondering if they'll ever have all the answers.
Yeah. It's a long road to healing. And while Hannah's physical journey ended when she was found, her emotional and psychological journey is far from over.
So where does that leave us? We have this web of relationships, a possible immigration scheme, cryptic messages, a stranger at a train station, and a possible case of dissociative fugue. It's almost like something out of a movie.
It is. It's a reminder that real life can be just as complex and unpredictable as fiction. And sometimes, even when we think we have all the pieces, there are still missing parts of the puzzle.
It makes you wonder what Hannah's life was like before all this. What kind of pressures was she facing? What even made her get involved with this whole scheme?
That's a question I think we can only speculate on, but it does seem like money played a role. Sources close to the investigation, they suggest that Hannah and the others were promised a quick payout for participating in this whole immigration scheme.
So the allure of easy money, maybe a way to get out of some tough times. It's a powerful motivator.
It is. It absolutely is. And you know, it highlights a common trap. That promise of a quick fix often leads to a whole lot of more complicated problems. In Hannah's case, it seems like the scheme, it kind of backfired, and she found herself deeper in trouble than before.
It's a reminder that those get-rich-quick schemes, they rarely work out the way people hope, and the consequences can be really far-reaching.
They can. And in this situation, the consequences, they weren't just financial. They impacted relationships, mental health, and ultimately led to a tragic loss of life.
It's a reminder that our choices, they're all interconnected, how one decision can set off a whole chain of events with unintended and sometimes devastating outcomes.
Yeah, it's true. And it brings us to, I think, a really difficult question. Knowing what we know now, should the family have been more transparent about the alleged immigration scheme from the very beginning?
It's a tough call. On the one hand, you can understand their fear, their desperation. They wanted to find their daughter, and they might have felt that, emphasizing the danger. We get them more attention and more help.
Right. But on the other hand, their initial narrative, with the hints of abduction and drugging, it created a lot of public fear. And it even put that man who tried to help Hannah in a really difficult position.
Yeah, imagine being that guy. You try to do a good deed, and all of a sudden you're painted as a suspect in a missing person case.
Right. It's tough. And it just highlights the ethical complexities of these situations, you know, that need to balance a family's right to privacy with the potential impact of their story on others who are involved.
And we can't forget about the role of social media. This story went viral quickly. I mean, people were sharing theories, speculating, even accusing that man who helped Hannah before all the facts were known.
Right. It's a reminder that information spreads so rapidly online. And
That's indeed right.
It can be really difficult to control the narrative once it's out there. It's so crucial to be critical consumers of information, especially in these emotionally charged situations.
And to remember that there are often multiple sides to every story. In this case, we have Hannah's perspective, which we may never fully know. We have the family's perspective, which is, understandably, colored by their fear and their grief. And then we have the stranger's perspective, which it seems like it was just kind of overshadowed by that initial narrative.
It's a puzzle with a lot of pieces, and some of them may never fit neatly together, but hopefully, by looking at all the different angles, we can gain a deeper understanding of the complexities of human behavior, the power of narratives, and the importance of responsible information sharing.
It's a lot to unpack,
Yeah.
right? But that's what we do here. We take these intricate stories and try to make sense of them piece by piece.
And if you've enjoyed this exploration, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future deep dives into all the mysteries of the human experience. We'll continue to unravel intriguing stories, shedding light on hidden motives, missteps, and the enduring power of the human spirit.
And don't forget, hit that like button if you enjoyed this conversation. Your engagement helps us reach more people and continue these important discussions. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep an open mind.